Hi, I'm Coach Hallis, and welcome to episode 29 of the Keeping It Real vlog. This is quarter 3, week 9. We only have 3 days, 2.5 days left in this quarter next week. Basically wrapping up, and we're off to our spring break / spring intersession on this balanced calendar before we lead into the final quarter of the school year. So today was our third quarter exhibition. In the last week, we've been scrambling to wrap up our project, and I wanted to kind of talk about where we are with that. As you can see on the screen here, we put roofs on our houses, and we got into finalization. So the pictures you'll see here actually don't have the very final step, which was this morning. All of our houses were finally done. Some kids put in some extra hours outside of class time to finish through. This morning we put the dabs of roofing tar on the nails, and they were ready to go by the time that we went today. So I just want to quickly show. This was the exemplar that I mentioned before. This was mine that I made basically step by step. I made this one step ahead of the students, and if I only had to demonstrate something, like let's say I was demonstrating how to put in one corner, students did the other corners on this too. It was just something where I could physically demonstrate. I did the same thing with my scale model. Here's what I'm doing, now you do it on yours, so that I actually didn't have to demonstrate on any of theirs. So everything on every piece of a student piece of work is theirs. And most of the student work went into this one as well, other than the painting. I pretty much did all of that. But all the cutting and construction and things like that, students helped with all that too. So this was the students that chose tricorn black and went with this kind of Nebula Galaxy theme. They took the DreamWorks logo. They wanted to do that on the front and kind of leave it plain. Originally they were going to do constellations on the front, but they decided to go with something more simple like that. They cut that out on the laser cutter. This was the group that got Luscious Green, and they wanted to do some stuff with kind of plants. Their original prototype had dog bones, and they actually painted those on the front at one time, but they didn't like how it looked, and they wanted to go with all dog paws on the front, so they painted over the whole thing again. This is a group that was like the front-running group, the group that had the best attendance, but they just kept wanting to go back and change things. They were happy with their final result. So that's that group. This is the group that originally chose pink, or a dark pink was the color, and in their prototypes they realized they really didn't like it as much as they thought they were going to. They tried some different things from what their original plan was, what their prototype was. They tried all sorts of different things. They just didn't like how it looked. So they chose, this was one of the colors that was not chosen. They picked from one of those. It was like one of everybody's bottom's choices was red and blue, which is why I used those for my model. But they took red, and they started from ground zero. They knew as soon as they were done with their prototype, we want to do something different. So I let them use red, and they went with this kind of Peanuts theme. The woodstock that you see on the front here was also cut out on a laser cutter and painted carefully. I think there was one other group that did the same sort of thing, and that's this group. So this was my group that had the most difficulty with attendance. Fortunately, that late game student that was added, I added her to this group, and she helped them along quite a bit. She has had very good attendance, and this was the brainchild of my student who has, I've mentioned before, who has very high standards, but has not had good attendance. She's been attending school a lot more, really pulling together to pull this thing through. She was like the leader for this project. This is kind of her vision coming together. And this was my group that ultimately took the longest. They were very picky. I mentioned them last week. This was one of the groups that was very picky about getting the colors just right and wanting everything to be just the way it is. And I think it turned out great. I mean, it's a beautiful doghouse. Most people, when they say they just smile when they see it. Look how cool it is. and I'm very happy with them. Some students in particular that put in a lot of extra time. This is one that students were working outside of class hours to get this thing done in time, and they did. We also did, as you can see on the left side here, a little bit of basic math in order to figure out how to make this frame, which we also laser engraved. And on here you can, I got the numbers came from the animal shelter, what size sign they would want to put in a place that would be good for them. So we used those given measurements to figure out how to make this frame fit together. This frame has a 3/8 of an inch overlap on either side, and then the piece inside of it fits into that 3/8 of an inch. So we had to do some work with some basic fraction adding and subtracting to make sure that we got the pieces cut to the right size, routed them, again laser engraved, painted the frame, got it all glued together, and we brought that over. So their social medias are on these QR codes, and this one that has the H, that is the articles that my students wrote, which brings us to today, which is when we went over there and we delivered these things to the shelter staff. You can see the animal control supervisor is in the Spider-Man house right there, and another animal control officer is there. The second to the chief of police is over here on the right, the major, and here are our students who were super proud to be there. Again, the original plan was for them to just come to the high school and get these things and then take them back and have that be our exhibition, but instead they chose to, the students requested to go there, and we managed to pull that together. Actually, this student over here on the left is one of our student interns in the tech department who has permission to drive school vehicles, and he actually pulled these things on a trailer, followed the bus over to the animal shelter, and made that happen for us. So he's a great kid too. So we went there, we brought these up, they got to meet the major, got lots of gratitude from the shelter staff, got a lot of appreciation for their work. They talked to the kids about, what is it you did, and who did this house, and who made this, and how did you do that, and a lot of those sort of questions you might see in a traditional exhibition. But this is obviously a little bit more personal, a little bit more intimate. You don't have members of the community coming in, or like 100 people coming and talking to you, but a very intimate form of exhibition where their work is being made very public, and they're interacting with the people who this is going to help. So after they got this quick picture, they carried them into the fenced area, and then the students got a quick tour of the area. They got to hang out with some cats and dogs, and a hamster and a bunny, and we went back. And so next week we will do some final reflections, and there is one more student who's still working on something, but we will talk about reflections and that final student outlier next week. But that's where we are. All smiles today now that things finally pulled together at the end of quarter 3. So I will talk to you next week.